Welcome back to Paul's Tech News. It's November 20th. There are just 41 days left in 2022, and I'm already feeling that end of the year nostalgia where you look back and you wonder where all the time went, what positive choices were made versus the negative ones, and whether this year was a good year or a bad year. It's all relative, of course. You can easily enough decide that the world is ending and we'll all be dead by January if you listen to the doom and gloomers, or you can simply contrast 2022 with 2021, or especially 2020 to determine, well, it could have been worse. If you narrow your view to the world of PC building and gaming, though, I'd say that yes, it was a very good year, with excellent game releases such as Elden Ring, and even the end of the GPU shortage, if you look to the second half of the year. It is once again possible to build a decently powerful mid-range gaming PC for less than or around $1,000, and even some of the more scandalous news, such as NVIDIA's melting 12-volt high-power connector problems with the RTX 4090, are proving to be less widespread than initially feared. I even managed to get these awesome water bottles in stock on my store at paulshardware.net, so let's take a step back. Have a drink, maybe not water, I'll go for a beer. Having some Sierra Nevada Pale Ale today, but let's have our drink if you're into that sort of thing, and focus on the good things that happened as we finish out this year. Cheers. Excellent! Today's video is brought to you by the new FX series of cases and CPU coolers from Be Quiet, combining addressable RGB lighting with legendary build quality, top-tier performance, and near-silent operation. The Pure Base 500 FX can fit up to a 360mm all-in-one or tall air coolers while keeping things chilly thanks to airflow-optimized top and front panels. The Pure Loop 2 FX liquid cooler comes in 3 sizes and supports all modern mainstream CPUs, and the Pure Rock 2 FX air cooler can handle up to 150 watts TDP with style and ease. Be Quiet's FX series products are suitable for any build in need of a functional and tasteful RGB upgrade, so click the sponsor link in the video description for more. NVIDIA has had a weird past month or so. On one hand, they've launched powerful new 40 series GPUs that improve performance over last gen by significant margins, but on the other hand, the RTX 4090 launch has been marred by regular reports of 12VH power cable connectors melting, while the RTX 4080 launch from just this week was overshadowed by its $1,200 price and the fact that it seems positioned more to make the 4090 look good than anything else. We've now heard that they've sold something like 125,000 RTX 4090s, which even at the base price of $1,600 is $200 million, not a bad chunk of revenue for NVIDIA. The 12-volt high-power connector Saga received a significant update this week, though, with Wednesday's publication of the GamersNexus deep dive video on the issue, where Steve and team managed to do what no one else had, actually make a connector melt in repeatable fashion. I highly recommend watching the full video if you haven't already, which is chock full of testing data, but here's a breakdown of what they discovered. On the plus side, the failures seem exceedingly rare. In a follow-up Friday, NVIDIA said that they are aware of 50 cases thus far. Out of the 125,000 units sold, about a 0.04% failure rate, which is lower than many projections estimated. Failures can occur for more than one reason, with foreign objects or manufacturing debris being caught in the connector being one possibility, but a not fully inserted connector combined with angling or bending the connector after installation seems to be the more common issue and the one that GamersNexus was able to recreate in their testing. On the minus side, there does seem to be a problem or at least a design deficiency with the 12-volt high-power standard as a whole, and there's no magic hardware combination that is completely free from possible problems. Adapter dongles from both of the primary manufacturers who made them, Astron and NTK, have failed, and NVIDIA Founders Edition cards, as well as dedicated actual 12VH power cables that ship with ATX 3.0 compatible power supplies, have melted too. RTX 4090 owners who are looking for guidance on what to do next, apart from filing a class action lawsuit that is, which did happen last week, can at least game with some level of assurance based on this advice. Make sure that the connector is plugged into the graphics card completely with no gap, and per NVIDIA, you can do this better by connecting the adapter first and then installing the GPU into your case. Do note that yes, there is a latch on this connector, although it is recessed and so it's harder to see than with the standard 8-pin connector. Per the spec here and these images posted by VPCF, you can sort of see that, and then a better shot of it here from Hassan with the little recessed part right there. But making sure that that latch is actually hooked is definitely a good call. There, got it. Likewise, don't overstress the connector by unplugging and replugging it, and don't angle it too severely or wedge it up against a case side panel. And sure, that's some extra care that's required for these cards, which probably shouldn't be the case when you're talking about a $1,600 GPU, which is why the rumor is that PCI-SIG is reassessing this standard and might update it. Using a slightly shorter sense pin from these extra 4 pins on the top to determine if the connector is actually seated before power flows is one possibility that's been floated, but it's still too early to say how they'll resolve it for unlaunched cards, or if they can figure out a solution that will work more reliably for all 125,000 plus RTX 4090s that are already out in the wild. Lastly on this topic, I'd like to address Steve's comments from the end of his video about responsible reporting amongst the tech media and YouTubers and sensational headlines.
And it's uncomfortable for me to add this monologue section because it involves some constructive criticism of our peers whom we like.
How dare you, sir? I make YouTube videos based on whatever hyper-popular subject matter my rabid and bloodthirsty fanbase is currently devouring, and to suggest that I should do research or testing before drawing my conclusions or screaming bloody murder is not only insulting to my potential view counts, it reminds me painfully of the obligation I have to my audience to keep them informed while doing my best not to mislead them. And ain't nobody got time for that. I have half a mind to boycott GamersNexus and to—
It's not meant to be a slight on others. I like Jay, I like working with them, like hanging out with them. I like his content.
Oh, he was talking about Jay. Never mind then. Speaking of drama in the tech world, PC gamers seemed to universally give NVIDIA the finger when the RTX 4080 launched on Tuesday. The $1,200 GPU showed decent performance gains versus the 30 series, but was still far behind the RTX 4090, while nudging up uncomfortably close to it in price. The Asus Strix RTX 4080 actually costs just $50 less than an RTX 4090, which is pretty dumb. Reviewers who did not echo the general sentiment that NVIDIA is a horrible and greedy company were given a bit of a hard time even, which is somewhat understandable given the $500 increase this gen versus the RTX 3080, which launched for $700. But perhaps the biggest insult to Team Green with this launch is the fact that cards are still in stock, several days after the launch took place. That doesn't apply to Newegg. They're all out of stock there, except for some dumb marketplace scalpers trying to charge upwards of $2,200 for them. But Micro Center, who requires buyers to actually physically visit the store to make a purchase, apparently still has shelves full of 4080s still available. Even the store here in Southern California, one of the busiest from my understanding, still has models in stock, which I see as a good thing. As many reviews pointed out, there's a lot better bang for the buck to be had in the $500 to $700 range right now, especially for heavily discounted cards like the Radeon 6900 XT and 6950 XT, and for the whales who are really okay with spending more than most people's whole PCs cost just for a graphics card, the 4090 is probably way more appealing, if you can find one. But I find this news to be quite exciting. The high-end desktop space may be getting some competition again in 2023 with the debut of Zen 4-based Threadripper CPUs. CPUs codenamed Storm Peak have appeared in engineering sample trim on the Einstein at Home user database with 3 different part numbers to check out, 2 being 96-core 192-thread chips, just like the top-end EPYC Genoa CPUs I discussed last week, and a third sporting 64 cores and 128 threads. This info was discovered by BenchLeaks on Twitter, and if specs are the same as the EPYC Genoa counterparts, these CPUs could have 12-channel DDR5 support and up to 160 PCI Express Gen 5 lanes. AMD is expected to launch a new platform for these CPUs, but will they be giving us Threadripper Pro workstation-class CPUs as they did with the 5000 series, which were super pricey and often only available through OEMs, or will we get a more mainstream variant for regular consumers like OG Threadripper, which quickly supplanted Intel in the high-end desktop space when it launched however many years ago that was, to such a degree that Intel doesn't even really compete there anymore. But it was for that exact reason that AMD never needed non-pro Threadripper 5000 CPUs, so hopefully Intel will re-enter the fray with a high-end desktop variant of Sapphire Rapids, which could go up to 60 cores and 120 threads, as long as Intel CPUs aren't delayed. That would be unprecedented. Speaking of things you shouldn't have to wait for, it's time for Tech Briefs, where we bend space-time itself to fit maximum news into minimum seconds. The RTX 4060 has now been outed via a somewhat obscure and now deleted post by Lenovo China gaming desktop product planning manager Wolstame. who speculated as to the specs while debating a personal upgrade. This is all still very early since the rumored launch wouldn't even be till June 18th, 2023, but if true, the RTX 4060 performance would be roughly in line with an RTX 3070 while costing about $440. We still have yet to see an RTX 4070 or 4070 Ti though, so we'll probably have to wait till CES or later to get a better idea of NVIDIA's plans for next year. Speaking of next year, it's expected that AMD will launch Ryzen 7000 series CPUs with 3D V-Cache in 2023 because that's what they said they would do. But there's much speculation as to the configuration, so cue another rumor post on the Bilibili forums by ECSM_official, which claims that they'll be using a single CCD configuration, 6-core and 8-core models, presumably the 7600X3D and 7700X3D, or maybe a 7800X3D. They'll land in the first half of next year, and I'm hoping for a CES announcement, as well as a hopefully good price for the 6-core model, if that comes to be. It seems like it could be awesome for new PC gamers on a budget. ECSM also said A620 chipset motherboards would be arriving in Q2, and that there are AM5-based APUs in the work, but details on them are still pretty vague. Finally, for anyone who was wondering why they're running out of elbow room, it is reported that the reason why is that there are now 8 billion frickin' people on planet Earth. That's a lot of people, and PC Gamer notes that it's a significant load on the servers to maintain that many concurrent users. And maybe you grew up hearing about overpopulation fears and whatnot, but if you didn't notice, I'm attempting to remain blissfully unaware of negative things to close out 2023, so I couldn't help but think, that's a lot of hugs. You could theoretically hug 8 billion different people now. You just have to hug them really fast. About 313,000 people per day by my math across a 70-year lifespan, which means I'm a bit behind. So I'll start now by offering all of you a great big remote digital hug, just to say thanks for being here and for watching my videos. Isn't that nice? So there you have it, guys, tech news for the week. And if you liked it, click that like button or leave me a comment down below. While you're down there, all the articles I talked about today are linked in the description if you're interested. You can also check out my store at paulshardware.net for high-quality merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, beer sets, and more, including these new water bottles. They're great for drinking water. Subscribing to my channel is always a good call too. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next week.